I used to believe that words disappeared the moment they were spoken, that they faded into the air, lost forever. I was wrong, because some words don't fade, they settle deep inside you, they stay. And sometimes they cut sharper than anything else ever could. My name is Dorothy Hale, and at 72 years old, I learned something I wish I had understood much earlier in life. The people who hurt you the most are often the ones you trusted the most. It started on a quiet afternoon in a place that was supposed to feel like home, my daughter's house. I had gone there expecting a simple visit. A warm cup of tea, maybe a little conversation, a chance to feel close to family again. Instead, I walked into something I was never meant to hear, and what I heard that day didn't just hurt me, it changed everything. Because the words spoken behind that door were never meant for me to hear, but once I heard them, there was no going back. The house was quiet when I arrived, too quiet. I remember thinking it was strange. My daughter Karen was usually quick to greet me at the door, but that afternoon nothing. I stepped inside slowly, setting my purse down. "Karen," I called out, no answer. Then I heard voices from the kitchen. Soft at first, then clearer as I walked closer. I wasn't trying to listen. I wasn't trying to overhear anything, but then I heard my name and I stopped. "She's becoming a burden," Karen said. I froze, my breath caught in my chest. Another voice followed, "Her husband, Mark. We can't keep doing this," he said. "It's too much. Too much." The words hit harder than I expected. I stood there, just out of sight, unable to move, unable to leave. Then Karen said something I will never forget. "We need to start thinking about what to do with her. What to do with me, not help me, not care for me, but what to do with me, like I was a problem, something to be handled. Disposed of." My hands trembled slightly. I should have walked away. I should have left quietly. But I couldn't, because something inside me needed to hear the rest, needed to understand just how far this went. And what I heard next was worse than anything I could have imagined, because they weren't just talking about me, they were planning something. Mark lowered his voice, but I could still hear him. "We need to move faster," he said. Karen sighed. "I know, but we have to do it carefully." Carefully, my heart began to race. Do it carefully? Then came the words that made everything clear. "If we can show she's not capable anymore," Mark continued, "it'll be easier, not capable." My mind struggled to process what I was hearing. Karen didn't argue. She didn't defend me. Instead, she said something that broke something inside me. "She's been forgetting things lately. We can use that. Use that." I felt my chest tighten. Yes, I had forgotten a few small things recently. Names, appointments, little moments anyone my age might experience, but they weren't signs of anything serious. They weren't signs that I couldn't take care of myself. Yet here they were, turning those small moments into something else, something dangerous. "She doesn't need to know yet," Mark said. "We'll handle everything first." Everything. My mind filled with questions. What exactly were they planning? What did handling everything mean? And why did it feel like I was losing control of my own life without even knowing it? I stepped back quietly, my heart pounding. Every instinct told me to leave. To get out before they saw me, because if they knew I had heard this, everything would change. But as I reached for the door, one final sentence stopped me cold. "Once it's done," Karen said softly, "we won't have to worry about it anymore." And suddenly I realized something terrifying. They weren't just talking about helping me. They were talking about getting rid of the problem. And in their minds, I was the problem. But what they didn't know was that I had heard everything. I left that house quietly. They never knew I had been there, never knew I had heard their conversation. And for the first time in my life, I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to confront Karen immediately, to demand answers, to ask how she could talk about her own mother that way. But another part of me, the quieter, more cautious part, told me to wait, because whatever they were planning, it wasn't something small, it wasn't something harmless. And if I confronted them too soon, I might lose any chance of understanding the full truth. So I made a decision. I would act like I didn't know. I would continue visiting, continue smiling, continue being the same person they expected me to be. But this time I would be watching. And it didn't take long before I started noticing things I had never paid attention to before. Small changes, subtle shifts. Karen began asking more questions about my finances. Mark showed unusual interest in my house. Even simple conversations felt calculated, like they were gathering information, testing something. And the more I paid attention, the clearer it became. They weren't just thinking about my future, they were planning to control it, but I still didn't know how far they were willing to go. Until one day, Karen made a suggestion that revealed everything. And it was a suggestion that could have taken everything away from me. It happened during another visit. Karen poured tea while watching me carefully, too carefully. Mom, she said gently, have you ever thought about getting a little help? Help, I knew what she meant, or at least I was starting to. I managed just fine, I replied calmly. She smiled, of course she did. But it didn't feel like reassurance, it felt like preparation. Of course you do, she said, but sometimes it's good to plan ahead. Plan ahead, there it was again, that same careful language, that same subtle pressure. Mark joined the conversation. We just want what's best for you, he said. What's best for me? Those words might have sounded comforting to anyone else, but now they felt like something else entirely, something rehearsed, something strategic. I nodded politely, saying nothing more, but inside, everything had changed, because now I understood. They were building a case. A slow, careful case designed to make it look like I needed help, like I couldn't manage on my own. And once they proved that they could take control of my decisions, my home, my life, but what they didn't realize was that I was no longer the person they thought I was. I wasn't confused, I wasn't unaware. And I certainly wasn't helpless, because while they were planning their next move, I had already started planning mine, and my plan would make them regret every word they had ever said. I started paying attention to everything, every conversation, every question, every subtle push, and slowly I began documenting it, writing things down, dates, times, details, because if they were building a story about me, I would build the truth about them. I also made a quiet decision. I would speak to someone I trusted, a professional, someone who understood situations like this. The attorney I met with listened carefully, didn't interrupt, didn't judge, and when I finished explaining everything, she said something that stayed with me. They think you're not paying attention, I nodded. They're wrong, she smiled slightly, and that gives you an advantage, an advantage. For the first time since that afternoon, I felt something other than fear. I felt control. The attorney helped me understand my options, what they could legally do, what they couldn't, and more importantly, how to protect myself. We prepared documents, updated records, made sure everything was clear and secure. But she also suggested something else. Let them keep thinking their plan is working, she said, because when people believe they're winning, they make mistakes, and those mistakes can reveal everything. So I continued playing my role, calm. Unaware, trusting, but behind that calm exterior, I was watching, waiting, preparing, and eventually Karen and Mark made the mistake we had been waiting for, and that mistake would expose everything they were trying to do. The moment came sooner than I expected. Karen invited me over again, another normal visit, another quiet afternoon, but this time something felt different. There was tension in the air, unspoken, heavy. Mark joined us at the table. Karen took a deep breath. Mom, she began, we think it might be time to talk about your future. There it was, finally, out in the open. I listened quietly, letting her speak, letting them both explain their concerns, their suggestions, their carefully planned words, and when they finished, I spoke, calmly, clearly, confidently. I know what you've been doing. The silence that followed was immediate, sharp. Karen's expression changed. Mark looked frozen. I heard your conversation, I continued, the one you thought I'd never hear. They didn't deny it, they couldn't, because they knew. In that moment, everything had changed. I explained what I had done, the documentation, the legal protections, the steps I had taken to secure my independence, and as I spoke, I watched something happen. Their confidence disappeared, their control slipped, because for the first time they realized something. I was never the person they thought I was. And now they had lost the advantage. But what happened next was something I never expected.
Karen started to cry. Not quietly, not gently, but in a way that felt real. Raw. Mom, we were just trying to help, she said. I looked at her for a long moment. Maybe part of her believed that. Maybe part of her had convinced herself that what she was doing was justified. But intentions don't erase actions. And words don't disappear. I didn't need control, I said softly. I needed respect. The room was silent. Because that was the truth. Not anger. Not revenge. Just truth. Over time, things changed. Slowly. Carefully. Our relationship was never quite the same. But it wasn't completely lost either. Because sometimes, people don't realize the damage they're causing until it's too late. And sometimes, they only understand when they're forced to face it. As for me, I learned something important. Growing older doesn't mean becoming weaker. It doesn't mean becoming invisible. And it certainly doesn't mean giving up control of your own life. Because the truth is, wisdom comes with age. And sometimes, that wisdom is the only thing standing between you and the people who think they know better. Even now, years later, I still think about that moment. Standing outside that kitchen, hearing words I was never meant to hear.